Today, in Chapter 37 of Brihad Parashara Horashastra, we will discuss topics such as Trigraha Yoga, the cosmic triangle, and the three-dimensionality of powers. We're going to completely unpack how these three-planet conjunctions actually work. Looking at our agenda for this explainer, we've got a highly structured mathematical roadmap ahead of us. We'll sequentially break down the profound three-planet conjunctions of Chapter 37, learn the rigorous formulas used to calculate them, and then dig into the foundational math from other chapters, like planetary strengths, specific logna calculations, and family dynamics that give us the essential context we need to fully grasp these cosmic triangles. Section 1, Chapter 37, Lunar Yogas and the Cosmic Triangles. Let's get right into it. We're starting right at the source with Chapter 37, Verse 1. Now, what's fascinating here is how the text lays down the absolute foundational rules. It states very impartially that the moon's placement relative to the sun, whether it sits in an angle, a succedent house we call a panaphara, or a cadent house known as an apoklima, directly dictates a person's potential. It literally correlates to whether an individual's wealth, intelligence, and skill will be little, meddling, or excellent. Think of it like this. The distance and geometrical angles between planets are basically cosmic dials, turning human potential up or down. Moving sequentially through the chapter, we hit Verse 3, which details the Trigraha Yogas. These are the cosmic triangles formed by three specific planets. On the left side here, we have the conjunction of the Sun, Moon, and Mars. In the Sanskrit parsing, Surya is the soul, Chandra is the mind, and Mangal represents raw energy. So the literal translation is this intense fusion of soul, emotion, and action. Astrologically speaking, this creates a highly vital, frankly somewhat aggressive mind. Philosophically, it's the absolute alignment of will and action. In a practical, everyday sense, this combination produces individuals who are just naturally wired for military command, strict leadership, or really high-stakes entrepreneurship. But wait, look at the right side. Verse 3 also gives us the Sun, Moon, and Mercury conjunction. Here, Buddha, or Mercury, steps in to replace Mars. Now the literal translation shifts completely to the union of soul, mind, and intellect. The simple meaning here is profound intelligence and eloquence. Philosophically, it represents the synthesis of pure consciousness with logic and perception. Practically, in our modern world, this specific cosmic triangle maps perfectly to your master diplomats, top-tier analysts, and prolific writers. This geometry builds powerfully into Verse 4, which describes a fierce conjunction, the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter. Looking at the original Sanskrit, we have Chandra for the mind, Mangal for martial energy, and Guru for expansive wisdom. The literal meaning here is a dynamic expansion of aggressive intellect. Astrologically, it's an explosive combination for generating massive wealth while possessing an absolute, unyielding sense of righteousness. Philosophically, this verse is really about righteous indignation, applying fierce martial energy to uphold vast moral or philosophical structures. The practical significance of this is huge. Today, you'll see this specific cosmic triangle in aggressive reformers, relentless trial lawyers, or titans of industry who operate with a strict, almost militant personal code of ethics. The text makes it incredibly clear. Jupiter brings the wealth and wisdom, but Mars ensures it gets wielded like a weapon. So, you might be wondering, how do we actually calculate this three-dimensionality of powers? Well, the method is extremely rigorous. First, you have to note the exact longitudinal degrees of the three planets to ensure they're actually conjunct within an effective orb. They have to occupy the same energetic space. Second, you determine their dimensional dignity. Are they in a friendly sign? Is Jupiter exalted while Mars is debilitated? The text insists on a mathematical synthesis. You can't just read the planets individually, you have to blend their strengths. If one planet in the triangle is weak, it drains the potency of the others. But if all three are mathematically strong, this cosmic triangle creates an undeniable three-dimensional force in the person's life. Section 2. Assessing planetary strengths. To properly calculate the power of those Chapter 37 triangles we just talked about, we first have to assess how the text mathematically defines planetary strengths and weaknesses. The text clearly categorizes celestial bodies into benefics and malefics. Jupiter and Venus are natural benefics. The Sun, Saturn, and Mars are your malefics. But Mercury is fascinating because it's highly adaptable. It's neutral, and it only becomes a malefic if it geometrically joins forces with another malefic. The Moon is pretty dynamic too. It acts as a benefic when waxing, but becomes a malefic when waning in the dark half of the lunar cycle. And then we have Digbala, or directional strength. This mathematically maps exactly how planets derive maximum power based on specific geographic coordinates within a chart. For instance, Jupiter and Mercury gain their ultimate strength in the east, right at the ascendant. The Sun and Mars are most powerful in the south, up in the 10th house. Saturn rules the west, in the 7th house, while the Moon and Venus draw their power from the north, in the 4th house. Why does this matter? Well, if a planet in your Trigraha Yoga possesses Digbala, its energetic output is exponentially magnified.
Furthermore, the source dictates really precise mathematical deductions, full, half, or one-third of a planet's contribution if it happens to be a malefic placed in the visible half of the zodiac. That means houses 7 through 12, which sit above the horizon. Benefics, on the other hand, lose only half of what malefics lose in those same positions. It's literally like reading a strict accounting ledger, but for cosmic energy.
Section 3. Calculating Pranapada Lagna. Let's look at some of the foundational math required here. To fully grasp the calculations of Chapter 37, we really need to understand the rigorous math found earlier in the text. Vedic astrology relies heavily on strict formulas. Just look at this exact 3-step calculation for the Pranapada Lagna. First, you take the time of birth and convert it into a highly specific ancient unit of time called Vigatikas, where 1 Vigatika equals exactly 24 seconds. Then you divide that total by 15. Finally, you add that resultant degree to the sun's precise longitude, but you have to modify the addition based on whether the sun sits in a movable, dual, or fixed sign. It's a very exact science. The text actually provides a literal mathematical example for us. Let's assume a birth at 16 Gatis and 25 Vigatikas. When you convert that, it's 985 Vigatikas. Divide that by 15, and it yields 65 signs and 20 degrees. By expunging the multiples of 12, the remainder is mathematically added to the sun's longitude. And the result? If this final Pranapada Lagna falls in favorable houses, like the 2nd, 5th, 9th, or 10th, the birth is cosmically auspicious. If it falls elsewhere, it's deemed inauspicious. Section 4. Multi-planet Yogas. Applying that mathematical foundation, let's look at the broader context of multi-planet alignments. Chapter 36 details the Lagnati Yoga. This is a highly specific cosmic geometry that requires pure benefic placement. We're talking Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus, situated specifically in the 7th and 8th houses from the ascendant. And the text places a strict mathematical constraint on this. These planets must be completely devoid of any malefic conjunctions or visual aspects whatsoever. The text imparts a very deterministic outcome for this yoga. It asserts impartially that a native born with this exact calculation will be highly learned, wealthy, free from disease, and among the most supreme individuals on Earth. It's fascinating because the absolute precision of the planetary positions is directly equated to the magnitude of the human outcome. Section 5. Assessing siblings and family. What's truly mind-blowing is that this exact deterministic framework we use for Chapter 37 is also rigorously applied to immediate family dynamics. Looking at Chapter 14, the text outlines how the significator planet interacts with various houses to mathematically predict the number of coburns, which is just the ancient term for siblings. It specifically designates Mars, not Jupiter, as the primary mathematical indicator, or Karaka, for brothers and sisters. These are highly specific rules stating that conjunctions dictate exact birth orders and family sizes. For example, if Mars geometrically joins Saturn, the math dictates the birth of an elder sister. If Mars and the lunar node Rahu are conjunct, it signifies the tragic loss of younger siblings. The text even provides an equation for exactly 7 siblings. The 12th lord has to join Mars and Jupiter, while the moon sits isolated in the 3rd house. You can really see just how exacting this ancient science aimed to be. This quote perfectly illustrates how the text predicts the specific lifespan of individual siblings based purely on planetary math. It doesn't give you vague generalities. It mathematically isolates the 3rd, 7th, 9th, and 12th younger siblings as being short-lived, all based on these specific planetary alignments. So, what does this all mean for us? Looking at the rigorous calculations of trigraha yogas and planetary strengths, we are left to wonder, did these ancient scholars view this complex cosmic calculus as a tool for us to actively change our destiny, or is it simply a lens to observe what has already been mathematically written in the